Hey, this is Michael Gale again. This is part 3 on Daniel 9:27. And the title of this short video is called "The Antichrist is Not Making a Peace Treaty with Israel." Okay, so I'm going to run through 3 points in this video. Point 1 is no one is creating or making a covenant or a peace treaty. Point 2, the many isn't Israel. And point 3, the he is not the same as the one who comes and makes desolate. You got the he who confirms the covenant at the beginning of the verse, and then the he who comes, those are 2 separate people. Okay, so those are the 3 points. Let's look at point 1, and he shall confirm. So let's look at the Hebrew. Most say the Antichrist creates or makes a peace treaty with Israel. That's what the seminaries teach, and everybody else just about. Here is the create and make word. So create is Strong's in Hebrew is 1254. It's bara, and a couple examples of that in Hebrew. And I would use Genesis because everybody's familiar with these verses. God created the heavens. Okay, that's create, right? And or in King James, it's God created the heaven. And so this word create is the create word in Daniel 9:27. No, it's not in there. No one's creating anything. So when they say the Antichrist is making a peace treaty or creating a peace treaty, the word create is not in the verse. So let's look at make, as in he makes a peace treaty. That's Asa. It's 62:13 in Strong's. And an example is God made the expanse, talking about Genesis here. And King James, and God made the firmament. Okay, is 62:13 the word make? Is that word in Daniel 9:27? No, no one is making anything. Okay, the word in Daniel 9:27 is gabar. It's 1396 in Strong's. It means to prevail, to be strong, or to strengthen. And an example of that I use Zechariah 10:12 for this one. And I will strengthen them in the Lord. That's that same word, gabar. And King James, I will strengthen them in the Lord. Same thing. And so in the Hebrew Bible, gabar is frequently attributed to God, who empowers his people to overcome their enemies. And I checked this same verse with my Hebrew friends, my rabbi friends in Jerusalem and in Judea there. And these are non-Christian Jews that know Hebrew. Believe me, that's what they talk. And so they said the best English translation for gabar is to enhance an existing covenant. Enhance. I say strengthen, but they say enhance is even better. So, and I love it, to enhance an existing covenant. Nobody's making anything here. So create or make is not in the Hebrew. Strengthen or enhance is in the Hebrew. So this is an existing covenant. No one's creating anything. The Antichrist doesn't have an existing covenant with anyone, much less Israel. Okay, let's look at point 2. The many. Point 2 is the many. It says in the verse, Daniel 9:27, it says he confirms the covenant with the many. Well, who is the many? Okay, and this one's easy. Hebrews 72:27. It's Rob or Rav, and it means abundant in quantity or size. It means exactly what it says. So I pulled this verse out as an example of the many. It's Isaiah 53:11. As a result of the anguish of his soul, he will see it and be satisfied. By his knowledge, the righteous one, my servant, will justify the many, and he will bear their iniquities. So this is a famous verse. Everybody knows it. And it's talking about justification by faith, the many. And so the many is not Israel. There's over 8 billion people on the planet and 7 million Jews living in Israel. 8 billion, 7 million, right? There are around 2.5 billion Christians on the planet and 7 million Jews living in Israel. So Israel is one of the smallest countries in size and population. So how can it be the many? It doesn't make sense. And so other places in Daniel, in the same book of Daniel, where we're doing Daniel 9:27, other places in Daniel, Israel's called the beautiful land, or your people. When Daniel's referring to the Jewish people and he's talking to God, he says your people, uppercase Y, and or your city, your city. And so when Daniel is speaking of himself, he calls Israel my people. And so it's never the many. So if this, in this verse, if he was talking about the Jews in Israel, or the peace treaty with Israel, like they always say, he would have said your people, referring to God's people, or my people, referring to Daniel's people, but he would never have said the many. So that's point two. The many is not Israel. So let's do point three. That's the last part of the verse. And on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. You know, kind of a run-on sentence here, but the he that strengthens the covenant is not the same person as the one who comes and makes desolate. These are two different people. When you read the verse, look at the verse carefully. There's two different people in the verse. It's not the same. The he who strengthens the covenant, it's not the one that comes and makes desolate. And so the one who comes and makes desolate takes place at the midpoint of the 70th week. That's what it says, in the middle of the week, at the midpoint of the week. And what do we know happens at the midpoint of the week? Satan is cast out of heaven and thrown to the earth. That's Rev 12, at the midpoint of Daniel's 70th week. And this event is what actually starts the tribulation. And Satan persecutes the apostate church for the 3.5-year tribulation. And that's the discipline of Laodicea that we've talked about before. The overcomer church, Philly, is kept from this persecution. Now for the conclusion. No one is making or creating anything in this verse. The he is strengthening or enhancing an existing covenant. And the he is the Messiah strengthening the new covenant at the end of the age. And that's called the latter rain. We know that the new covenant will be strengthened or enhanced at the end of the age by the latter rain. And so this latter rain outpouring of the Holy Spirit takes place at the beginning of the 70th week. And this is also the beginning of the final birth pangs of the church. The first birth pain, the beginning of birth pangs is way back in Matthew 24 with earthquakes and wars and famines and all that stuff. That's been going on for 2,000 years. But the final birth pangs take place in the first half of Daniel's 70th week. And the final birth pangs create the overcomer church, Philadelphia. Those who keep the word of his perseverance. The Lord puts an open door before him. They go through the open door into the sanctuary. That's the veil between the outer court and the sanctuary. And they're not persecuted during the tribulation. They're doing ministry work. I hope to be in that group. And so the final birth pangs are suppressed or halted for those who compromise the truth. All you have to do to stop this final birth pangs, this testing time in the first half of Daniel's 70th week before the Great Tribulation, if you compromise the truth a little bit, just go along with the flow, would you? Quit making problems all the time. What's wrong with you Christians? And just compromise the truth. Think about your church, your family, your job, and everything. You could lose all that. So those who compromise, the final birth pangs, not so bad. Take, pretty cool. And so, of course, that's the apostate church of the last age, is Laodicea. And they are in the outer court. They don't have an open door to go through, so they're in the outer court. And so at the midpoint of the 7 years, Jesus pulls the plug on Laodicea's apostasy. It's like you had your final chance, last call, and you failed, and so Jesus pulls the plug on Laodicea. That's what it means when he puts an end to sacrifice and offering. Sacrifice and offering only takes place in the outer court, and that's where they are. Don't stay in the outer court. So he puts an end to this, and Laodicea is then disciplined. He says, I discipline and reprove those whom I love. He's not bailing on Laodicea. He's going to spank them. And so they are trodden underfoot during the tribulation for the 3.5 years. And that's the purpose of the tribulation. Once you understand the purpose of the tribulation, a lot of these things fall into place. And so Daniel 9:27 actually summarizes the entire end time scenario of Daniel's 70th week. Why does Jesus strengthen the new covenant at the beginning of the week? To empower the saints for the final conflict. It's to prepare his great army, his overcomer army, for the final battle. The overcomers will be granted power and authority that has never been seen in the church before. In the history of the world, they will preach the gospel of the kingdom to the whole world as a testimony to them, and then the end will come. Matthew 24, Jesus says this. So a final note here, all references to the temple after the cross are referring to the church, with the exception of a couple places in Acts where it says, and they were preaching daily at the temple, but that's just geography. So Daniel 11 is describing the first Hanukkah, the Hanukkah story with Antiochus Epiphanes and the Maccabees. And this is the natural fulfillment that took place in 167 BC. So the final fulfillment of the Maccabee story is at the end of the age, will be the spiritual Hanukkah with the Antichrist in the church. Then, after God is done bringing the church, the apostate church, back to him during the tribulation, and then he turns its attention to Jerusalem, and then he brings the Jews back. And so that's the great end time story. And then the church is brought back, the Jews are brought back, and then the kingdom is established on the earth for 1,000 years. And so we'll be talking about the abomination of desolation in the next video. Don't miss that. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to it if you like this stuff. Don't subscribe to it if you don't like this stuff. And don't forget my blog, endtimebibleprophecy.com, and my books on Amazon, The Two Witnesses and The Harlot of Babylon. So I'll see you in the next video. Shalom.